Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the December 16th Eastchester Union Free School District Board of Education meeting. This meeting will be a workshop session for the Board of Education this evening, but before we go into our workshop, we do have a few action items that we need to take care of and actually vote on tonight. So the first item is going to be budget transfers, $10,000 or over. Do I have a motion? Christine?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education approve the attached budget transfer of $10,000 or over.
Thank you, Christine. Do I have a second? Sean? All in favor? Thank you. Okay, and now I need a motion to close the meeting and open up the work session. Do I have a motion? Jackie? Get that microphone.
Working on it, okay. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, with the recommendation of the superintendent, hereby approves the motion to close the meeting and open the work session meeting.
Thank you, Jackie. Do I have a second? Rob? All in favor? Fantastic. So we're now moving into the work session portion of our meeting this evening. So Dr. B, I will turn it over to you.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Okay, so I will invite Mr. Rob Jacoby, our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources and Technology, up to the podium, and he's going to share with us our draft thinking around the upcoming 26-27 academic calendar. And again, I just want to reiterate, it is draft, and we are looking for feedback from our Board of Education, and also right now we are following all contractual obligations to allow any of our groups to take a look at it as well for their time of review. All right, and here's Mr. Jacoby.
All right, thank you, Dr. V. Good evening, everybody. So it is a pleasure that I get to present to you two versions of a draft of our calendar for next school year. You'll hear me say it over and over tonight that this is a draft. I think the intent is to sort of give everybody an outlook of what it could look like. There are some uniquenesses to next year. We'll review those and then sort of give you a very tangible look at what's being proposed. So when we put a calendar together, it's not quite as simple as just picking days and counting. There are a lot of different factors that have to go into it. Obviously, we have to follow state ed requirements. So minimum number of instructional days. In addition, the state has instructional hours within those days that we are required to be here. There are mandatory days off, holidays, and recess. In addition, we have to follow different bargaining agreements, contracts, different, the length of the school year, the number of conference days, etc. We also have instructional priorities, so we want to make sure that the calendar kind of flows and students aren't getting intermittent breaks and that it has a nice flow to the year. In addition, where we place PD so that it makes sense throughout the year, it's not all joined together, we have it spaced out. In addition, obviously our testing schedule is important. So when do regions happen? Well, regions happen at the end of June. We've got to be in session at the end of June. So that kind of creates some bookends for us there. 3 through 8 testing in the spring as well as NYSA SLAP. Then other holidays and observances, religious and cultural, that we try to build in as many as we can. You'll hear a little bit about that. And then finally, aligning ourselves with others, especially BOCES, to make sure our BOCES students' calendar as well as our local calendar coincide enough to make it make sense, and our neighboring districts, just if we share any services and athletics, it makes sense there as well. So next year has 2 factors that are making it a little more challenging or different than usual. The first is that Labor Day is about 4 or 5 calendar days later than we're used to it. So we're used to Labor Day on September 2nd, September 1st. Next year it's on September 7th, so that leaves schools with a challenge. Do we still wait until after Labor Day like we have for the last few years, or do we open school session before? The second factor is that Easter and Passover happen almost a month apart. That's really important because typically they happen within a week of each other, and we could take spring break, both holidays are encompassed in it, and then we go forward from there. So that in the spring causes a bit of a challenge. As you can see here, here's some regional comparison. Nobody screenshot this and show other districts. These are just what we have for now as drafts. Nobody's. I know, but it makes me feel better if I say it. So I should have written draft in huge dark letters on every single one of these slides because they truly are drafts. So you see here that some are electing to go after. Scarsdale's taking a approach like we are, where we're kind of battling with two different versions. Southern Westchester BOCES up top. A lot of schools deciding to start before Labor Day. We're still monitoring that really daily as schools are starting to make decisions. So what I'm going to show you is two different versions of the calendar, and I'll show you in particular where they affect our school year. All right? I'll show you month by month, and some are a little different and some are very similar to each other. So if we were to start school before Labor Day, that's our version 1 on the left. What would happen is we'd have 3 superintendent's conference days, probably starting at the end of August. Students would come in on the 3rd and the 4th. And then school would proceed as normal. We'd have Labor Day off, obviously. Okay, so that gives us 18 school days in September alone, whereas version 2 would start us the day after Labor Day on the 8th. Teachers would come in for superintendent's conference days the first week in September, but students wouldn't come until the 8th. Okay, so think of version 1 as like an expanded year, but version 2 is a little more compressed and compact, and you'll see how that affects us later on. October is simple. Either way we go, there's really just one day that we need off as Columbus Indigenous Peoples Day. In November, both versions are the same as well. We would do our superintendent's conference day on election day as usual. We'd get Veterans Day off. We'd take our elementary parent-teacher conferences the week before Thanksgiving, and then this is the Thanksgiving recess that we're used to. Half day on Wednesday, Thanksgiving off, and the day after Thanksgiving. Similarly in December, both versions of the calendar, it's the same way. Half day before break. Break starts on Christmas Eve and goes through January 1st. We return to school on January 4th. Martin Luther King Jr. Day on the 18th, we'd have off in January. So again, through this, you saw that we started the year kind of different, but the rest have been the same. There's not very many options. Here's where we get a little interesting. In February, if we expand the year where we're starting before Labor Day, we would be able to build in a full week of President's Day. So you'd see the half day on the 12th and a solid full week. We'll call that winter break. And that would be a solid week. Now, if we were to compress the year and start after Labor Day, we'd need to find a day in there. And that day would probably be the 19th. We can't shave the day from the beginning of the week because the 15th is President's Day. So we'd probably have to shave it at the end of the week. So that's February. And similarly in March, we've got to find one more day, because you remember in September, we had 16 versus 18 days of students. So we need to find one day in February and one day in March. And again, normally Passover and Easter would coincide. This is not as big of a deal. However, in this case, we couldn't build in a full, quote-unquote, spring break in this model. It would be a 4-day break in version 1. It'd be a 3-day break in version 2 with a half day tagged onto it. So that's the two big changes, February and March. Because when we get to April, the 22nd and 23rd, that's when Passover falls. So we've taken sort of 2 days from spring break and moved them toward the end of April. So that breaks up April toward the end, and then May we'd have our Memorial Day. So this calendar builds in 188 teacher days and 183 student days. That means our end goal is 186 teacher days, 181 student days. If we get to May 3rd and we feel like there's no more snow coming and we've never taken a snow day, we would extend, per the contract, we would extend Memorial Day break. So we would take the 28th of May and June 1st off. That would get us to our 186-day goal. If we take one day, if we get one snow day, we're down to 187, then we would take off May 28th, the Friday of Memorial Day. And June finishes out. Regents Week is the 21st, and that's the week we'll close school. And Juneteenth on a Saturday is being observed on Friday the 18th. So that takes us through the end of June. Now, we did our best to incorporate every religious and cultural holiday we could. It's somewhat difficult because you have a confined bookend of where the calendar starts, where the calendar ends, how many days go in between, and all the 6 different factors that you saw on an earlier slide. So what we will do is put an appendix on our calendar of special observance days to acknowledge all of the religious and cultural holidays that we can. Again, this is in draft form, so we have a working list. We always run the risk of leaving something out, which could happen, so we definitely welcome feedback on this list to make sure that our appendix is as comprehensive as possible so that we can acknowledge all of the religious and cultural holidays. That's it in a nutshell. I will definitely welcome any questions and discussion. Rob?
This might be a stupid question, but does a half day count as a full day to the 181?
It does.
It does.
It does.
Okay. In version 2 there, did you consider taking away the half day for the spring break and adding it to the full week?
Show me where
I
in
forget.
what, in
Yeah,
March.
if you go back to so version winter break. So was it winter? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, version 2, the winter break, right? If you took away the 12th, you could still get the full week, right? The 15th through the 19th. So there'd be no half day leading into winter break, but you get the full winter break.
Yeah, there's a couple factors there. The way the contract reads in plain language is that it happens before the break. What we're going through now is having our bargaining units review these with us. If there are uniquenesses that we can talk about, I'm sure we can. It would still, it wouldn't give us the 19th though, in version 2. We'd still come for a half a day. You know what I mean?
15th is also President's Day.
That's correct, yeah.
So to that, since it's not before a break, once again, it could be contractual, but the last week we have all those half days.
Correct.
Could technically you end one day earlier and add it to that?
Not in the plain language as it is.
Yeah.
I guess we're all focused on February break. Another option, since we are working with 188 days scheduled, is it possible to just put in the 19th, work with 187, and then we end up, let's say, using more snow days or it snows really bad that year, put it into May? So meaning, I think what everybody's feeling is you probably more likely rather have the February day than the May day.
Yeah, it's a really good thought. I think there's a little bit of a challenge here that even spring break happens on the early side. Like we could get snow in spring break.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad idea at all to build in less days. I think the problem comes if you get a later snow day. It's challenging to figure out where do we pull the extra day. So you're saying, let's say we build in more break, right?
Yeah.
And then if it snows too much, then we come to school on the day off instead.
Yeah.
As we get later, there's so
There's
many
no-
fewer
there's no
options of
days.
saying you have to come to school on this day. I don't think it's out of the question though, but it's certainly one of the challenges.
Rob, could you go way back to the beginning of the versions really quick? So essentially what we're doing in version 1 of this draft is we're starting really the beginning of the year with superintendent conference days, so the kids aren't even gonna be there anyway. But technically, we're starting school earlier versus having the kids not coming until the 8th. The kids here are coming in on the 3rd, but you've got a weekend in there. So in theory, the kids are only coming in like 2 days earlier than they do, which gives you those 2 full weeks in the breaks,
Correct.
right? Just to kind of simplify it. I think that the challenge, I think is, and I don't know if we can look more at like those half days, would it give us a day back? But I guess to Sean and Rob's point, if we're under the constraints of the plain language, like you have to get a half day before, there's not much that we can do about it. And I would say just, again, from my perspective, to not break up those weeks where you're off like Monday through Thursday, and then the kids have to come in on Friday. I would imagine most people that are gonna go away are gonna book that entire week. The kids probably aren't gonna come anyway. And I would also think for our staff members, they wanna go away with their families also. They probably want that full week. So I don't know if there's another iteration here or how many variations, but I would say, and again, just speaking for myself, version 1 seems like the only way to keep those two holidays, those weeks intact in what's here. I don't know if you, I mean, you guys have looked at it, you know, Dr. V, Bill, Rob, like, I don't know if you guys see another way out of that, knowing the plain language.
There is one more option. Let us do like a puzzle and see if we can. So if the goal is full weeks, what can we? That's what you're asking, right? If the goal is to have a full February and full March, what are our options? Try to work out a puzzle.
And I think just very quickly for everybody here, and again, just so the public knows, we're not taking action tonight. This is just a work session to kind of go through this, but just kind of a temperature check in terms of the versions as Rob puts the puzzle together. Like, each of you should just talk about which one you're kind of leaning towards, because I think that'll just help direct kind of the next iteration. So Jackie, do you want to go first?
Oh, well, I had a question first. If I'm understanding it correctly, with the built-in snow days, we land on 181 student days. The requirement is 180. Can we land on 180 and give 1 day back so that we have it in that break? That's probably also a contractual thing, but you said if there's possibility of one-offs with the
I think
language.
we'd want to. I think we'd want to create the calendar, giving students as much instruction as we can, while also taking that into factor. So we do need to think about this a little bit. You know, taking an extra day off wouldn't fall actually in line with the contract, but even beyond that, let's see if we could piece it together where we maximize instruction for our students. And like I said in the earlier, like, you know, instructional flow. You know, I don't think any of us likes Monday through Thursday and then Friday school and then a weekend, right? So let's see if we could come up with another option on that.
I think to answer your question, Matt, I would lean more towards version 1 right now, just based on that. Again, not personally, more from just flow and how it would work, and knowing that the majority of people may take off, and the staff members, you factor all of that in. I think the flow seems better in version 1. It will be different, right, for the community, given that we're accustomed, we're used to starting after. But I think if people understand the nuances, then and the trade-offs, then that's where I would say I'm at today.
Sure.
Yeah, I would also go with version 1 for the same reasons.
Christine, I know you had a question.
I do have a question, and I know you built in the calendar looking towards snow days, but how are the days affected towards the end of the year when we do have the heat policy? For how long do the kids have to be in school for it to actually count? Like, when the kids go to school, like, they're in school at 8:30, and by like 9 o'clock in the morning, the temperature in the classroom is so high, under the state, they have to go home. Does that count, or do they lose a day?
So we can look at, it's very loud. We can look at the exact language, because the new temperature is new to us. But the day does count for the most part if they're in school. Now, if they're leaving only like within a half hour, then we're in dicey space. But if they've come in, it's a pretty short window that still counts for a day. That being said, we should have our air conditioning running pretty good. And Greenvale, we have Mr. Sheldon working to put units in, not the permanent ones, but at least cooling systems to try to help the buildings kind of stay tempered. So fingers crossed that we don't have to get to that point.
And then towards my assessment, I agree with both Rob and John. Keep the weeks consistent without truncating vacation time.
Yeah, I agree also. I think version 1 makes things outside. Version 1 too. Same.
100% version 1. Would you mind just going to April though? I just wanted to see that April. Okay. And then March, sorry. So even in version 1, we still don't have a full week for spring recess. Nobody's gonna.
Which I think, to Jill's point, unfortunately, the way it lays out, like, this half day, no one's
going.
the attendance record that day will be very low.
I have an idea that only just came, so give me a day to
So
vet
maybe
it
Rob, now that
before
you know, like,
publicly on
no problem.
live stream announcing.
The temperature of all of us, like, if there's a version
I
to
get
work
the
off of,
temperature.
maybe we look at version 1 and figure out,
It's
is there
really just
something
I'm
we
with
can
you.
do with that?
Okay,
with
there-
you.
Rob's
Right.
gonna work on version
So then, yeah,
1B.
so wait a
I got
minute.
1B coming out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Coming in for a full day.
Otherwise, it's
Full
just
day
a
and then a
loss.
half day. Yeah,
It won't be instructionally used.
totally. Great.
Well, Mr. Jacoby, thank you very much, and thank
Pleasure.
you for just taking in all the feedback. There's so many little moving parts that go into a calendar, and thank you to the board for just at least giving us the path that we know we should move down. Right.
Any other questions or comments for Dr. V or the cabinet? Okay. Future meeting dates, January 6th will be a regular meeting, and January 20th will be a work session.
Actually, I apologize, Mr. Finelli, if I could just introduce two people at the meeting tonight.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there are two students sitting in the audience today, and they are actually working. So as part of our 4 pillars of the vision that we're trying on, one of the pillars is around community and how we partner with community or offer internships, externships, all sorts of things. We have 2 students who will be working as our Board of Education technicians along with our technology department, getting real-time work experience in a paid internship type experience.
It's amazing.
So please stand for just a moment and we say welcome, and you'll see them every Tuesday when we're together. And this is on-the-job learning. So they're going to learn AV, the cameras, all the setup, all of that. Thank you.
That's amazing. Thank you, Dr. V. So future meeting dates, January 6th will be a regular meeting, and January 20th will be a work session. And just before I make a motion to adjourn this evening, I can't believe this is the last Board of Education meeting for calendar year 2025. How fast time goes. And I want to wish everyone a very happy holiday and a Merry Christmas. On that, do I have a motion to adjourn? Jackie, do I have a second? Rob, all in favor? Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays.